Since 2000, the following players have had at least 92 passing touchdowns and 56 or fewer interceptions in their first 4 seasons. So those are the numbers that Baker Mayfield has. First 4 years, 92 touchdowns, 56 interceptions. Other players who have numbers in that grouping: Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, Josh Allen, Andrew Luck, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, and Baker Mayfield. So that would be considered a pretty good start. Not a great start, but a pretty good start. Now I factor in 4 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators, and maybe you have a sliding scale there of exactly what you got from Baker Mayfield. Now, you also have the health factor in there with him playing through injury. Maybe he's healthy, ready to go. And this is it felt like it was a move that was rumored for quite some time because we kept thinking he's got to end up somewhere. Is it Seattle? Maybe Pittsburgh? Was it going to be Carolina? And then finally, the Panthers pulled the trigger on this. Joe Person, he covers the Carolina Panthers. He's the beat writer for The Athletic, kind enough to join us on this topic on short notice. How's the move been received there in Carolina, Joe?
I think folks are mostly pretty excited about it. Panthers fans have seen kind of a revolving door at quarterback since Ron Rivera left and Matt Rule came in. They made the decision, of course, to cut ties with Cam Newton. They did bring him back briefly last year after Sam Darnold got hurt, but then it was Teddy Bridgewater, then it was Darnold, who I just mentioned, and it hadn't worked. I mean, they have for one reason or another. None of those guys were helped by the fact that Christian McCaffrey's been injured the last 2 years, obviously, but they're going to keep swinging at the quarterback position. Obviously, they drafted Matt Corral in the 3rd round this year. Viewed him, Dan, as more of a developmental quarterback. The plan was never to rush him along. So what you said is absolutely right. This felt like it was going to be inevitable, beginning really on the second night of the draft when Cleveland and the Panthers were talking, and it continued up through minicamp, and now finally the Panthers sort of put a 4th of July, July 5th actually, deadline on it, try to get it done, and they did.
I'm just trying to figure out the strategy here because you said they keep swinging, trying to get a quarterback here. At some point, I got to blame the people trying to get the quarterback that they keep missing on this. I like Matt Corral a lot. He kind of reminds me of a more athletic Baker Mayfield. And he's a 3rd-round pick, so he's not expensive. And if Baker does well, you're going to have to pay him market value. Sam Darnold, is it truly an open competition in your opinion that it's between those two to be the starting quarterback?
Not really. I mean, they went and got Baker because they didn't feel confident in Sam Darnold. I mean, obviously they tried to get Deshaun Watson. You just mentioned Corral. And maybe it's open for the first week or so at training camp only because Baker's going to have to cram the playbook and learn this Ben McAdoo offense in a pretty short period of time. Camp starts for the Panthers 2 weeks from today. But yeah, I mean, and your point about Matt Rule and David Tepper, the owner, and the general manager, Scott Fitterer, is absolutely valid. I mean, this team has the decision makers have missed at the most important position on the field, and if they miss again, and it's probably going to cost Matt Rule his job, and could mean Scott Fitterer, who did arrive a year after Rule, he could be in trouble too.
How did Baker do with the media yesterday?
It was interesting. I thought we were going to have all kinds of fireworks and some pretty juicy quotes about Cleveland and getting disrespected. And it was very clear, even the way, he was in a button-down shirt from what looked like his kitchen or dining room in his Austin, Texas home. And he was very buttoned up. And that was
literally
kind of how he, that was how he came across, Dan. I think, and I asked him the question. Obviously, you mentioned the health and the other concerns with Baker. And then the other thing is just, does he alienate a portion of the locker room, as some have reported, and of course, Mort's report about the adult in the room in Cleveland, in the quarterback room. And so I said, will you do anything differently in Charlotte than you did in Cleveland? And I thought he gave a pretty good answer. He said, look, there is a balance. Like I think what I learned is not to make everything so public when things are going poorly, or if there's an issue with a teammate. He said, but I also, I can't change who I am. I have to bring the swagger, or I'm not going to be the quarterback I need to be. These things always get more attention and get heightened when a team's not winning, like Cleveland last year. And so I think that'll be the case. Are the Panthers going to win? Then maybe folks are overlooking or able to sweep some of that under the rug. Or maybe Baker changes. We'll see. Like when Cam Newton came back last year, Dan, he said he was a more mature, a more humble guy from what he had gone through in New England, having to wait and take a prove-it-type contract. We'll see if the same can be true of Baker Mayfield.
What about Christian McCaffrey?
Well, he looks good.
He always looks good, but those are usually poses with his shirt off with his girlfriend in some faraway exotic island.
Yeah, I know. I no doubt about it. He had an interesting phone call this offseason where he proactively called Marshall Faulk. And if you look at Marshall's numbers, around year 5, year 6, Marshall went to 3 straight Pro Bowls, I think an All-Pro 3 straight years, had some of his most productive seasons. And he called him 2 because, as you know, he's a very similar player, catching the ball out of the backfield, lining up in the slot occasionally, and running the ball. And I caught up with Faulk in Charlotte. He was in Charlotte for a speaking appearance a couple weeks ago. And I said, what'd you tell Christian? Because Christian didn't want to get too into it. And he said, it just comes a time where you have to train a little differently. You have to practice a little differently. If they're trying to give you the day off, take it. Don't feel like you have to be it's okay even as a team leader, like, oh, you're giving me this Wednesday off, take it. And then Falk said, too, and this dovetails a little bit with what you were talking about, McCaffrey with his shirt off, is Marshall said when he was playing, he takes his shirt off. People weren't sure if he was a professional athlete. But he trained, he was more into yoga, Pilates, that kind of thing, rather than bulking up. And I think he shared a lot of that with Christian McCaffrey.
Well, if Christian is going to follow Marshall Faulk's path for success, he should join the Rams, just like Marshall did, where he was with the best offense in football. That certainly helped. He's in Carolina, and they're going to ask him to do a whole lot. And I wouldn't have signed him to the contract extension. Never a running back. I don't want you for another contract. But if they can use him in a different way, But if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm like, hey, Christian, can you help me? Can you help me get a new contract here? So I don't know if he's able to change the role that he's going to play on that team, because it feels like the role that Christian McCaffrey is going to play is even larger now than it was before.
That became a talking point kind of during the offseason. I mean, it's been a talking point for 2 years, but it popped up again, OTA's minicamp. And Matt Rule, because there was some talk, will Christian play more in the slot, Christian McCaffrey? And Rule said unequivocally, yeah, we might do that some. He said, but he's a running back, and he's one of the best in the game when healthy. And you're right. I mean, last year they did not play him at all during the preseason, and he's not going to play this summer either, at least in the 3 exhibitions. Where they ran, here's where I think it started to go bad for Christian last year, is they had 2 home games, both of which they won. The second of which was New Orleans. He got like 28 touches as he had in week 1. And 4 days later, he's on the field at Houston in a Thursday night game and pops his hamstring. And I just think that he kind of went from 0 to 60, having not had any game action in the preseason. So they got to figure something out, because you're right. I mean, Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold or any quarterback you want to pop in there has to have McCaffrey for the majority of the games for this offense to be successful.
Well, Joe, Carolina got interesting. I don't know if you got any better, but you certainly got more interesting. So always great to talk to you, and thank you.
All right, Dan. Have a good summer.
Thank you, Joe. That's Joe Person, Carolina Panthers beat writer for The Athletic.